When construction worker Michael Turner pulled CEO Eleanor Palmer from a deadly car crash, he walked away expecting nothing in return. But fate had other plans. As their worlds collide, his life as a struggling, single father, her empire under threat from a vengeful ex-husband, they discover that true value isn't measured in dollars. When sabotage threatens lives and a child's innocent wisdom bridges their divided worlds, both must decide what truly matters. A story of redemption, unexpected connection, and the courage to rebuild shattered foundations. Sometimes the strongest structures are built from broken pieces. Comment below if you've ever found unexpected value in life's detours, and stay tuned for this emotional journey that proves some rescues work in both directions. Metal shrieked as the steel beam crashed onto Eleanor Palmer's car, trapping the CEO inside the twisted wreckage. Through the shattered glass, rough hands reached in, pulling her to safety with surprising gentleness. Her vision blurred from the impact, but she caught glimpses of her rescuer, a construction worker in worn jeans and a navy work shirt, his face etched with concern rather than fear. As sirens wailed in the distance, he simply disappeared into the gathering crowd, leaving only his weathered jacket draped over her trembling shoulders. The paramedics arrived minutes later, finding Eleanor sitting on the curb beside her crushed vehicle, clutching the stranger's jacket around her like armor. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" one asked, kneeling before her. Eleanor Palmer, CEO of Palmer Holdings and Development, the woman whose name adorned half the buildings in downtown Pittsburgh, could only shake her head. Words failed her, not because of shock, though certainly there was plenty, but because she couldn't comprehend why someone would save her life, then walk away expecting nothing in return. It was a question that would haunt her in the weeks to come. At 5:30 in the morning, Michael Turner's alarm cut through the darkness of his small apartment. He silenced it quickly, careful not to wake 6-year-old Lily, sleeping in the room next door. Their morning routine moved like clockwork. He'd shower, prepare Lily's lunch, and gently wake her with a soft pat on her shoulder. "Time to rise and shine sunshine," he whispered, as he did every morning. Lily's room was small, but filled with drawings and craft projects they'd made together. College funds weren't an option, but creativity he could give her in abundance. By 6:15, they sat at their tiny kitchen table. Michael drank his coffee black, while Lily arranged her cereal in patterns before eating it row by row, one of her quirks that had emerged after her mother left 3 years ago. Michael studied his daughter as she ate, her dark hair falling across her forehead in a way that reminded him of Catherine. The thought brought a familiar ache. Catherine had walked out, claiming she wasn't cut out for motherhood, leaving Michael to navigate parenthood alone. At 35, his hands were calloused from years of hard labor, his dark brown hair perpetually in need of a cut, and the lines around his eyes had deepened since becoming Lily's sole caretaker. Michael dropped Lily at Mrs. Gloria Jenkins' apartment downstairs. The elderly woman had become their lifeline after Catherine left. "You look tired, Michael." Mrs. Jenkins noted, her eyes kind, but concerned behind thick glasses that magnified her gaze. At 72, Gloria Jenkins carried herself with the dignified posture of someone who had weathered life's storms with grace. The widow of a construction worker herself, she seemed to recognize the weight Michael carried. "Working extra shifts again?" He nodded, trying to save up for Lily's doctor visit next month. Her ear infection is back. What he didn't mention was the incident yesterday at the Grand Tower construction site. He'd been helping set foundation supports when he heard the crash, saw the beam fall. His body had moved before his mind could process what was happening. It wasn't the first time a Turner had acted without thinking. In 1985, his father, Robert Turner, a master carpenter, had pulled two people from a burning building on his way home from work. Like Michael, he had disappeared afterward, refusing recognition. "Turners don't help for applause," his father had told him. "We help because it's right." Gloria's knowing eyes suggested she suspected something. "I saw on the news some big-shot CEO got saved at that construction site of yours. Dangerous place, seems like." Michael shrugged noncommittally. "I was working on the west side, didn't see much." Gloria wasn't fooled, but she didn't press. Instead, she squeezed his arm gently. "Your father would be proud of the man you've become, Michael. Whatever you did or didn't do yesterday." The mention of his father lingered in Michael's mind as he made his way to the Grand Tower site. Robert Turner had been gone for 15 years now, but his principles remained Michael's North Star, especially after Michael's time in the Navy Construction Battalion, the Seabees, where he'd served before pursuing his dream of architecture school. The discipline and technical skills had served him well, even if the dream itself had been deferred. Eleanor Palmer sat rigidly in her office chair, her tailored suit hiding the bruises from yesterday's accident. At 42, she had built Palmer Holdings from a small consulting firm into a real estate development powerhouse. The view from her 30th floor office showcased three Palmer buildings cutting through the Pittsburgh skyline, with the newest Grand Tower still under construction. The tower represented not just wealth, but her vision of creating spaces where commerce and culture could coexist. Ms. Palmer, the board is concerned about your insistence on returning to work so soon after the accident, her assistant Robert Collins said as he placed a stack of contracts on her desk. At 58, Robert had been with the company almost from the beginning, one of the few who had stood by her through the bitter divorce and corporate battle with Richard. The board can direct their concerns to the quarterly profit margins I've delivered, she replied. What's the status on identifying the construction worker who assisted yesterday? Robert shifted uncomfortably. Security footage was limited due to the construction barriers. HR is reviewing employee records from the site, but without a clear description. Eleanor finally looked up, her green eyes sharp. I need a name, Robert. That man saved my life. Palmer Holdings rewards excellence, and what he did was beyond excellent. What she didn't say was how the incident had shaken her. For 8 years since divorcing Richard, she had built walls around herself, literal skyscrapers and figurative barriers that kept everyone at a professional distance. Yesterday, a stranger had broken through both with nothing but his bare hands in immediate concern for another human being. She also didn't mention the missing bracelet, a delicate gold chain with a small emerald that had belonged to her grandmother. It was the only thing she had left from a childhood where material possessions were scarce, but love abundant. Her father, a mechanic who had worked 6 days a week to put her through college, had given it to her when she graduated from the University of Pennsylvania. To remember where you came from, he'd said. The bracelet had been on her wrist during the accident. Now it was gone, another loss among many. I want interviews with every worker from that site, she instructed. Discreetly frame it as a general safety review. After Robert left, Eleanor turned to the window, her reflection ghost-like against the cityscape beyond. The woman staring back at her looked polished, successful, untouchable. But yesterday had proven just how fragile the human body could be, how quickly control could be wrenched away. She wondered what her father would think of her now. James Palmer had been a man who judged people by their character, not their bank accounts. He'd spent 40 years at the same auto shop, taking pride in honest work done well. Eleanor had inherited his work ethic, but somewhere along the way had perhaps lost sight of his values. The thought was uncomfortable. Eleanor Palmer didn't do uncomfortable. She solved problems, created solutions, moved forward. Sentimentality was a luxury she had abandoned long ago, along with a small apartment above her father's garage, where she'd spent hours sketching building designs on the back of old receipts. Turning from the window, she picked up the phone. Robert added a cash reward to the search, $20,000 for information leading to identification. If she couldn't appeal to humanity, perhaps capitalism would deliver better results. The foreman, Mike Russo, caught Michael as he checked in at the site. Turner, you're on the 10th floor today, and try to keep your head out of the clouds. We need those supports finished by noon. Michael nodded, slipping on his hard hat. He'd learned long ago that defending himself used energy he couldn't spare. What no one at the site understood is that Michael had once been on track for much more. 12 years ago, he'd been halfway through architecture school at Cornell, designing buildings rather than just building them. Then came Catherine's pregnancy, their hasty marriage, and his decision to drop out and support his new family. The architecture dreams had folded neatly away, replaced by blueprints for survival. As he worked through the morning, Michael's mind drifted to the woman in the car. He hadn't recognized her as the famous Eleanor Palmer until he saw her face on a newspaper someone had left in the break room. He'd simply seen a human being in danger and acted. The thought of claiming credit or asking for a reward had never crossed his mind. But now, hearing rumors of a substantial reward, Michael felt a momentary temptation. That kind of money could pay for Lily's ear surgery, start a small college fund, maybe even allow him to finish his degree. The temptation faded as quickly as it came. His father's voice echoed in his mind. A man's integrity isn't for sale, son. Besides, Michael had another reason for staying anonymous. He was working without a proper construction license. After his CB service in architecture studies, he should have qualified easily, but a paperwork issue with his military discharge had created complications. Mike Russo had hired him anyway based on his obvious skills and willingness to work hard, but the arrangement wasn't strictly legal. Being thrust into the spotlight could cost him his job. "Hey, Turner," called one of the younger workers during lunch break. "You see that crash yesterday? That was the big boss lady herself. Heard she's offering a reward to find the guy who pulled her out." Michael shrugged, unwrapping his simple sandwich. Didn't see much, was working on the west side. He ate quietly, planning the evening ahead. Lily needed help with her reading assignment, and he needed to mend the tear in her favorite stuffed rabbit before she noticed. Such was the rhythm of his day's work. Lily sleep repeat. It wasn't the life he'd imagined as a young man with an architecture scholarship and dreams of designing sustainable community spaces. But when Lily wrapped her arms around his neck at bedtime and whispered, "You're the best daddy," it was enough. Over the next week, Eleanor found herself driving by the construction site during lunch breaks and after work. She'd sit in her new company car watching the workers from a distance. None moved like the man she remembered, with that quiet sureness, that total focus. She tried other approaches, an anonymous employee appreciation event where she could observe the workers up close, a surprise inspection that allowed her to see their faces. She even authorized a generous safety bonus to all site employees, hoping her rescuer might reveal himself when claiming it. Nothing worked. "Maybe he doesn't want to be found," suggested Caroline Weber, her closest friend and legal counsel for Palmer Holdings over their monthly dinner. "That's absurd," Eleanor countered. "Do you know what I could do for this person? Job advancement, education opportunities, financial security?" "Maybe he doesn't want what you're offering," Caroline said gently. "Not everyone measures life by the same metrics, Elle." The comment stung because it exposed something Eleanor rarely admitted: her tendency to believe every problem could be solved with the right resource allocation. It was how she'd built her company, her reputation, and her life after Richard had left her for his 24-year-old assistant, claiming Eleanor was too focused on success to remember how to love. "This isn't about metrics," Eleanor insisted, though the words sounded hollow even to her own ears. "It's about gratitude, about fairness." Carolyn's skeptical expression said everything. Later that night, Eleanor stood on her penthouse balcony, the lights of Pittsburgh spread before her like a constellation. She'd grown up in one of the city's working-class neighborhoods, where her father had repaired cars for people who counted every dollar. Now she lived in the sky, surrounded by luxury, but disconnected from the ground. The realization was unsettling. Eleanor Palmer didn't do unsettled. She did solutions. Saturday morning found Michael at Riverside Park sitting on a bench while Lily conquered the jungle gym. These weekend outings were sacred to him. No work, no distractions, just time with his daughter. "Daddy, watch this," Lily called, hanging upside down from a bar, her dark braids dangling. "I see you, monkey," he called back, giving her a thumbs up. "Be careful." He was so focused on Lily that he didn't notice the woman approaching until she spoke. "She's fearless." Michael turned to find Eleanor Palmer standing beside his bench, dressed in casual closed jeans and a simple blouse so unlike her office attire that he almost didn't recognize her. "Ms. Palmer," he said, straightening, "what are you doing here?" She gestured vaguely toward the walking path. "I live about a mile from here. Sometimes I walk through on weekends." Michael nodded but said nothing more, turning his attention back to Lily, who was now attempting to cross the monkey bars. Eleanor hesitated, then sat on the far end of the bench. "It's a beautiful park," she offered. "I don't come often enough." Michael glanced at her but remained silent. His mind raced. Did she recognize him from the accident? Was this a coincidence, or had she somehow tracked him down? "The thing is," she continued, "in my world, everyone always wants something. Every interaction has an agenda." She watched Lily swing from bar to bar. "It gets exhausting." "Sounds like you need better company," Michael commented, not unkindly. Before Eleanor could respond, Lily ran up slightly out of breath. "Daddy, there's an ice cream truck. Can I have one, please?" Michael checked his watch. "Before lunch?" "Please." Lily extended the word to at least 4 syllables, clasping her hands dramatically. Michael laughed, a warm sound that surprised Eleanor with its openness. "Okay, sunshine, just a small one." As he reached for his wallet, Lily noticed Eleanor. Unlike many children, she showed no shyness. "Are you Daddy's friend? I'm Lily. I'm 6. "Hello, Lily, I'm Eleanor," she replied. "Yes, I work with your father." Lily's eyes widened. "Do you build big buildings too?" Something like that, Eleanor said with a small smile. Michael handed Lily a few dollars. The truck's by the fountain. Get me a strawberry popsicle if they have one. Okay. As Lily skipped away, an awkward silence fell between the adults. Michael broke it first. I don't actually work with you. Not directly, anyway. I know, Eleanor said. You work at the Grand Tower site. Something in her tone made Michael tense. Did you need something from me, Miss Palmer? Eleanor, please. She watched Lily carefully selecting her ice cream. She's wonderful. She's everything, Michael said simply. Lily returned balancing 3 frozen treats. I got you a strawberry one, Daddy. And I got a vanilla cone for your friend, because everyone likes vanilla, right? Before either adult could react, Lily had thrust the cone toward Eleanor, her expression expectant. That's very thoughtful, Lily, Eleanor said carefully accepting the rapidly melting ice cream. Thank you. They sat eating their frozen treats, Lily chattering about school, her best friend Zoe, and how she was going to build a rocket ship out of cardboard boxes. Eleanor found herself smiling genuinely caught up in the child's enthusiasm. What do you do? Lily eventually asked Eleanor, vanilla ice cream smudged on her cheek. I run a company that builds buildings, Eleanor explained, simplifying her role. Lily's eyes widened. Like the really tall ones downtown, Daddy helped build those. He's the best builder ever. He fixed Mrs. Jenkins's sink and built me a bookshelf for my birthday. Michael looked slightly embarrassed. Lily, it's true, Lily insisted. Daddy can fix anything, except maybe Mommy. But he says some things stay broken, and that's okay. An uncomfortable silence fell. Michael gently wiped Lily's cheek with a napkin. Sunshine, why don't you try the swings for a bit? Not too high. Once Lily was out of earshot, Michael sighed. Sorry about that. Kids have no filter. No, it's refreshing, Eleanor said truthfully. In my world, everyone has an agenda. Carefully filtered words. She watched Lily pumping her legs on the swing. She's lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one, Michael replied, his eyes following his daughter. As they prepared to leave the park, Lily turned to Eleanor. Will you come next Saturday? We're bringing a kite if it's windy. Eleanor hesitated, looking at Michael. He gave a small nod. I'd like that, Lily, she said. As she walked back to her apartment, Eleanor realized something startling. The persistent knot of tension she carried between her shoulders had loosened just a fraction. For 2 hours, she had thought about nothing except ice cream, sunshine, and the simple joy of a child who saw the world as fundamentally good. 3 weeks after the accident, Eleanor's security team finally made the connection. An employee badge access record showed one worker, Michael Turner, missing from his station for exactly 22 minutes during the time of the accident. Single father, 6 years on site, no disciplinary issues. Robert reported, placing the file on Eleanor's desk. Lives in the Riverside apartments with his daughter. Eleanor opened the file to find a standard employee photo. Michael Turner looked directly at the camera, no smile, no frown, just clear eyes and a face that had weathered more than its share of challenges, a face she now recognized from the park. Eleanor felt a strange mixture of triumph and unease. She had found her rescuer, but their park encounters took on a new dimension. Had he known who she was all along? Was he avoiding the reward for some reason? Most puzzling of all, why did the thought of revealing what she knew fill her with such trepidation? Michael was clearing dinner dishes when a knock came at the apartment door. Lily, already in pajamas, looked up from her coloring book. Is that Mrs. Jenkins? Probably, Michael said, though Gloria rarely visited after 7. Keep coloring, Sunshine, I'll check. Opening the door revealed not Mrs. Jenkins but Eleanor Palmer, wearing a simple dress that somehow looked more expensive than his entire apartment's contents. Ms. Palmer, he said, surprise evident in his voice. This is unexpected. I'm sorry to intrude, she said. May I come in for a moment? Michael hesitated, then stepped aside. Eleanor entered, taking in the small but tidy apartment. Books lined the walls, many on architecture and design, while Lily's artwork decorated every available surface. It was modest, but unmistakably a home. Lily, we have a visitor, Michael called. You remember Miss Palmer from the park? Lily bounded over, her face lighting up. Eleanor, did you come to see my rocket ship? I finished it. I'd love to see it, Eleanor said with genuine warmth. While Lily retrieved her cardboard creation, Michael turned to Eleanor. What brings you here? "I've been looking for you," she said simply, "or rather for the man who pulled me from my car 3 weeks ago." Michael's expression remained neutral, but a muscle tightened in his jaw. "You found him, I take it." "I believe I have." Their eyes met in silent acknowledgement. "Why didn't you come forward?" Before Michael could answer, Lily returned with her rocket, an impressive construction of cardboard tinfoil and liberal amounts of glitter. "This is Mission Control," Lily explained, pointing to a panel of buttons drawn with meticulous care. "And this is where the astronauts sleep." "It's extraordinary," Eleanor said, kneeling to examine the details. "You've thought of everything." "Daddy helped with the cutting," Lily admitted, "but I did all the designing." "She has an architect's eye," Eleanor observed. "Like father, like daughter," Michael said softly. Eleanor looked up sharply, but Michael's attention was on Lily. "Time for bed, sunshine. Go brush your teeth and I'll be in to read a story in 5 minutes." Once Lily had disappeared into the bathroom, Eleanor stood smoothing her dress. "You were in architecture school." It wasn't a question. Michael knew she'd been investigating him. "Cornell," he confirmed. "A lifetime ago." "What happened?" Michael's expression closed. "Life happened, Ms. Palmer. Now, if you've satisfied your curiosity about who pulled you from that car, I have a bedtime story to read." "I came to thank you," Eleanor said, "and to offer you something in return." "I don't want a reward." "Not money," Eleanor clarified. "A real one using your skills and experience. Palmer Holdings needs people who can both design and understand construction." Michael's laugh held no humor. "So now you're saving me, the rich CEO rescuing the poor construction worker?" The words landed like slaps. Eleanor stiffened. "That's not, isn't it?" Michael challenged quietly. "You investigate me, come to my home, unannounced, and offer to elevate me from my humble existence. Did you ever consider I might be content with my life?" Eleanor's cheeks flushed. "I thought, that's the problem," Michael interrupted. "You thought about what I might need without asking. Just like everyone in your world, Ms. Palmer. Everything's a transaction." Eleanor's professional mask slipped, genuine hurt flashing across her face. "That wasn't my intention." "What was your intention?" The question hung between them, and Eleanor found herself without a ready answer. Why had she pursued this so relentlessly? Why did it matter so much who had pulled her from that car? "I should go," she said, finally moving toward the door. "I apologize for intruding." Michael's expression softened slightly. "Wait, I should apologize too. You came to say thank you and I've been defensive. Why did you help me that day?" The question seemed to surprise her as much as him, as if she hadn't meant to ask it so directly. Michael considered this. "Because you were in danger. Because that's what people should do for each other." He paused. "Because my daughter is watching everything I do, learning how to be in this world." Eleanor absorbed this, then tried another approach. If not a book, then perhaps something else. A college fund for Lily Better housing options. Michael shook his head, disappointment crossing his features. "You're still not getting it. Turning a basic human response into a transaction, it cheapens it, doesn't it?" For perhaps the first time in her professional life, Eleanor Palmer found herself speechless. In her world, everything had a price or a value proposition. The idea that some actions existed outside that framework was foreign to her. "I need to read Lily her story," Michael said quietly. "She gets anxious if her routine changes." "Of course." Eleanor moved to the door but paused with her hand on the knob. "Will you still be at the park on Saturday?" Michael studied her for a long moment. "We'll be there at 10. Bring a sweater. It gets windy near the pond." It wasn't forgiveness or even acceptance, but it was something. Eleanor nodded and left the door closing softly behind her. In the elevator, she leaned against the wall, exhaling slowly. She had handled that all wrong. Eleanor Palmer, master negotiator, had misread the entire situation. But the most unsettling realization wasn't her tactical error. It was that for the first time in years, she cared about making it right. The next morning, Michael's phone rang as he prepared Lily's lunch. The caller ID showed the construction site office. "Turner," he answered, wedging the phone between ear and shoulder as he spread peanut butter on bread. "Mike Russo here. Got some interesting news for you." The foreman's voice held an unusual note of respect. "Just got a call from Palmer Holdings Arch. They want to review your personnel file." Michael froze. "My file, why?" Didn't say. But here's the kicker, they're reviewing everyone's credentials, looking for workers with untapped potential for advancement. Architecture background was specifically mentioned. The peanut butter knife hovered over the bread. I see. Thing is, Turner, I need to tell them about your licensing situation. With this kind of corporate attention, I can't risk. I understand, Michael cut in. Do what you need to do. After hanging up, Michael stared at the half-made sandwich. Eleanor was still pursuing her agenda despite their conversation. The thought brought equal measures of irritation and a strange warmth he wasn't ready to examine. Later that day, he received a letter from Palmer Holdings, not termination as he'd feared, but an invitation to apply for an expedited licensing program sponsored by the company. No strings attached, the letter emphasized, no obligation to accept employment afterward. Michael placed the letter on his small kitchen table, uncertain whether to feel grateful or manipulated. Before he could decide, another knock came at his door. This time it was Gloria Jenkins, her expression grave. Michael, did you hear Palmer Holdings bought the Riverside complex? We all got notices this morning. What? Michael took the paper she offered, scanning its contents. Indeed, Palmer Holdings had acquired the property and planned significant renovations and updates. They're saying rent won't change for now. Gloria continued, her voice wavering slightly. But you know how these things go. First comes renovation, then comes market rate adjustments. Michael thought of his neighbors, mostly seniors, on fixed incomes, working families, stretching every dollar. The Riverside apartments weren't fancy, but they were stable, a community where people looked out for each other. Don't worry, Gloria, he assured her, though uncertainty gnawed at him. I'll find out what's happening. After Gloria left, Michael paced the small apartment, pieces falling into place. Eleanor's visit, the job opportunity, now this purchase, they weren't coincidences. They were moves in a game whose rules he didn't understand. His phone pinged with a text message from an unknown number. Saturday, 10 a.m. I'll bring coffee. We should talk. Eleanor. Michael stared at the message, emotions warring within him. Part of him wanted to delete it, to shield himself and Lily from whatever complicated web Eleanor Palmer was weaving. But another part, the part that still dreamed of designing spaces that changed lives, was curious. What exactly did Eleanor Palmer want from him? The answer, when it came, would change everything. Eleanor's town car pulled up to Riverside Park precisely at 9:55 a.m. on Saturday. She stepped out, coffee carrier in one hand, a manila folder in the other. For a moment, she hesitated, an unfamiliar nervousness fluttering in her stomach. Eleanor Palmer didn't do nervous. She did prepared. She did strategic. She did solutions. Yet here she was, second-guessing herself before a meeting with a construction worker and his 6-year-old daughter. Michael and Lily were already at their usual bench. Lily spotted her first, waving enthusiastically. Eleanor, we brought the kite. Michael's greeting was more reserved, his eyes watchful. Good morning. I brought coffee, Eleanor said, offering the carrier, and hot chocolate for Lily. With marshmallows, Lily asked hopefully. Extra marshmallows, Eleanor confirmed, earning a delighted smile. As Lily sipped her treat, Eleanor turned to Michael. You received the notice about Riverside Apartments. Along with every other tenant, Michael confirmed. Interesting timing. It's not what you think, Eleanor began. What do I think, Miss Palmer? That I'm using business to manipulate you, she said bluntly. That I'm trying to buy your friendship or gratitude. Michael raised an eyebrow but didn't deny it. Eleanor took a deep breath. The Riverside acquisition was in progress before I knew you lived there. It's part of our affordable housing initiative. She opened the manila folder, revealing architectural renderings. We're renovating the building, yes, but maintaining it as mixed-income housing. Current tenants will have guaranteed units at their current rates. Michael took the renderings, his professional eye automatically assessing the designs. They were good, thoughtful improvements to the aging structure without sacrificing its character. And my licensing situation, he asked. The expedited program. An opportunity, not an obligation, Eleanor said. You have talent, Michael. Whether you use it at Palmer Holdings or elsewhere is your choice. Why are you doing this? Eleanor watched Lily attempting to launch the kite, her little face screwed up in concentration. Do you know what I thought about trapped in that car? Not my company or my achievements or my bank accounts. I thought about all the things I'd never done, the connections I'd never made. She met his gaze directly. You saved my life, then disappeared. When I finally found you, you refused any reward, any acknowledgement. You challenged everything I thought I knew about how the world works. And that interests you, Michael asked skeptically. It does, Eltonor admitted. You and Lily, you measure life differently than I do. I want to understand that. Before Michael could respond, Lily ran over struggling with her kite. Daddy, it won't fly. The wind's not strong enough, yet sunshine, Michael explained, setting aside the renderings. Can I help? Eleanor asked, surprising herself. Michael looked at her, really looked at her for perhaps the first time. What he saw must have satisfied him because he nodded. Show us what you've got, CEO. The three of them spent the next hour attempting to launch the kite with Eleanor proving surprisingly adept. My father taught me, she explained as the kite finally caught the wind. He said it was important to understand how things worked, not just how to pay for them. Watching Eleanor run across the grass, helping Lily guide the kite higher, Michael felt something shift inside him. The woman before him bore little resemblance to the corporate executive who had appeared at his door. Here was someone genuine, someone trying however imperfectly to connect. Later, as they sat on the bench watching the kite dance against the blue sky, Lily between them, Michael made a decision. I'll consider the licensing program, he said quietly. No promises beyond that. Eleanor nodded, understanding the significance of this small concession. That's fair. As Lily chattered about the kite's acrobatics, Eleanor's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, her expression darkening. Problem? Michael asked. Just work, she said, silencing the device. Nothing that can't wait. But the shadow that crossed her face suggested otherwise. Michael, attuned to reading people, sensed genuine concern beneath her composed exterior. Lily, why don't you show Eleanor your collection of special rocks? He suggested, giving Eleanor a moment to compose herself. As Lily eagerly led Eleanor to a nearby tree where she had arranged a series of ordinary pebbles with extraordinary stories, Michael pondered the complex woman who had entered their lives. Eleanor Palmer was clearly fighting her own battles, navigating a world that demanded constant vigilance and control. Yet here she was, kneeling beside his daughter, examining rocks with the solemn attention they deserved. The protective instinct that made him pull her from that crushed car stirred again, though the danger now was less tangible than twisted metal. Something was troubling Eleanor Palmer, something she wasn't sharing. Michael's intuition rarely led him astray, and it was telling him that the story of Eleanor Palmer was far more complicated than he had initially believed. As he watched her laugh at something Lily said, the morning sunlight casting a glow around them, both Michael felt a certainty settle in his chest. Whatever game was being played, whatever forces were at work, his path and Eleanor's were now inexorably intertwined. For better or worse, their story was just beginning. The news broke on a Tuesday morning. Palmer Holdings faces financial scrutiny, screamed the Pittsburgh Business Journal headline. Eleanor sat in her office scrolling through the digital version, her face a careful mask despite being alone. The article cited anonymous sources claiming Palmer Holdings was overextended, that the Grand Tower project was behind schedule and over budget, that investors were growing nervous. None of it was true. The Grand Tower was on schedule. Their finances were solid. But in the world of high finance and development, perception often outweighed reality. Her phone rang. Carolyn Weber, legal counsel and friend. I've seen it, Eleanor said without preamble. It's a hit job, Carolyn replied. The question is who's behind it. Eleanor already knew. Only one person had both the motive and the resources to orchestrate this. Richard. Her ex-husband had been suspiciously quiet since their divorce finalized. Too quiet considering he'd vowed to destroy everything she built after losing control of the company. We need to respond carefully, Caroline cautioned. A direct denial looks defensive. Schedule a press tour of the Grand Tower site, Eleanor decided. Transparency is our best weapon. And Caroline, find out what Richard's been up to lately. After hanging up, Eleanor turned to the window, her reflection resolute against the cityscape beyond. She'd fought too hard, sacrificed too much to let rumors destroy her life's work. Whatever game Richard was playing, she would win. She always did. Michael's day at the construction site took an unexpected turn when the foreman gathered the crew for an announcement. Listen up, Mike Russo called. There's going to be a media tour of the site tomorrow. Big shots from Palmer Holdings news crews, the works. He scanned the assembled workers. They want to show how well the project's going, so everybody needs to look busy and professional. Murmurs rippled through the group. construction sites weren't typically showcased mid-project. "Something wrong with the company?" asked one veteran worker. "Above my pay grade," Russo replied with a shrug. "Just do your jobs and try not to swear on camera." As the crew dispersed, Russo pulled Michael aside. "Turner, I got word from upstairs. You're being assigned to a different area tomorrow." Michael frowned. "Why, don't know." Orders came straight from the top. The implications were clear. Eleanor was deliberately keeping him away from the cameras, from any connection to her. After their time in the park, the personal conversations, it stung more than Michael wanted to admit. That evening, as he helped Lily with her homework, his phone buzzed with a text. "Need to speak with you. Not about us, about Riverside. Important. Eleanor." Michael stared at the message, torn between irritation and concern. The "not about us" part caught his attention. He wasn't aware there was an "us" to discuss. After tucking Lily in, he replied, "I'm listening." Three dots appeared immediately. "Richard Mills is trying to acquire the block surrounding the Riverside. My ex-husband. He doesn't know I own it yet. It's complicated. Can we talk?" Michael weighed his options. The Riverside purchase still felt manipulative, regardless of Eleanor's explanations. Yet if there was any threat to his neighbors, to Gloria and the other seniors who couldn't afford to relocate. "Tomorrow, 7 p.m., Mrs. Jenkins' apartment. She makes a good witness." Eleanor's reply came quickly. "Thank you." Ta-de-tam. Gloria Jenkins' apartment was similar to Michael's in layout, but filled with 60 years of collected memories. Photographs covered nearly every surface: her late husband Frank in his construction uniform, their children and grandchildren, even a few of Lily and Michael. "You sure about this?" Gloria asked as she set out coffee cups. "Business types like her, they don't care about folks like us." "I'm not sure about anything," Michael admitted, "but if someone's threatening Riverside, we should know." A knock came precisely at 7. Eleanor stood in the doorway, dressed more casually than her office attire, but still unmistakably elegant. "Mrs. Jenkins, thank you for allowing me into your home." Gloria's appraising look missed nothing. The designer watched the perfect posture, the careful smile. "Miss Palmer, I understand you own our building now." "I do," Eleanor confirmed, accepting the offered seat. "Which is why I'm here." She opened her tablet, displaying property records. "Richard Mills, through various shell companies, has been quietly acquiring properties surrounding Riverside. My sources indicate he plans to build a luxury high-rise that would effectively wall off this neighborhood from downtown." Michael studied the maps. "He doesn't have Riverside itself, though." "Not yet," Eleanor agreed, "but he's made inquiries through intermediaries." "He doesn't know Palmer Holdings is the current owner." "And this matters to you because?" Gloria asked bluntly. Eleanor met the older woman's skeptical gaze. "Professionally, because Richard would love nothing more than to derail my projects. Personally, oh?" She hesitated. "Because Riverside matters to Michael and Lily, and somehow they've come to matter to me." The simple honesty of this admission surprised both Gloria and Michael. "What's his endgame?" Michael asked. "Development rights for the entire block," Eleanor explained. "If he controls enough surrounding property, he can pressure the city to rezone, force smaller owners to sell. It's predatory development 101. "And what's your plan?" Gloria pressed. "To stop him," Eleanor said simply. "But I need information, on-the-ground intelligence, about who in the neighborhood has been approached, what offers have been made." Gloria and Michael exchanged glances. "The Hendersons on the third floors mentioned someone asking about buying their condo," Gloria offered. "And the bodega owner on the corner, his landlord's been trying to break his lease." Eleanor nodded, taking notes. "This helps, thank you." "What's in it for you?" Gloria asked, ever direct. "Stopping your ex-husband can't be your only motivation." Eleanor considered this. Riverside is perfectly positioned for workforce housing, people who keep the city running but can't afford downtown prices. Palmer Holdings has been developing a mixed-income model that could transform urban housing. "So we're your test case." Michael's tone was neutral, but his eyes were watchful. "More like the prototype for what housing could be," Eleanor corrected. "Sustainable, affordable, dignified. The kind of project that leaves a real legacy." Something in her voice, a hint of genuine passion, made Michael study her more carefully. "You actually care about this." "I do," Eleanor admitted. "My father lived in a neighborhood like this one. Good people who worked hard but could never get ahead because the system was stacked against them. He died thinking I'd forgotten where I came from. The personal revelation hung in the air. Gloria's expression softened slightly. Frank always said you can judge people by how they treat those who can't do anything for them. Your husband sounds like a wise man, Eleanor said. He was. Gloria rose, retrieving a photo album. 40 years in construction helped build half of downtown. As Gloria showed Eleanor photographs, Michael observed their interaction. Eleanor asked thoughtful questions showing genuine interest in Frank's career and Gloria's life. It wasn't the calculated charm of a businesswoman. It was something more authentic. When Gloria mentioned her arthritis making it difficult to visit her grandchildren in Cleveland, Eleanor didn't offer platitudes. Instead, she asked practical questions about transportation options and accessibility needs. Problem solving was clearly her default mode. Later, as Eleanor prepared to leave, she turned to Michael. I need to ask you something else. It's about the Grand Tower project. The media tour, Michael guessed. Eleanor nodded. There are rumors being spread, false ones, about the project's viability. I need to demonstrate our progress, but you can't risk me being recognized as the man who pulled you from the car, Michael finished. Might raise uncomfortable questions about why you're so interested in a construction worker. I'm sorry, Eleanor said, and she genuinely looked it. It's not that I'm embarrassed, it's just complicated, Michael supplied. I understand business optics, Eleanor. You don't need to explain. Relief flashed across her face. Thank you. After she left, Gloria fixed Michael with a knowing look. That woman's fighting battles you don't even see, Michael. What do you mean? I mean she didn't get where she is by playing nice with the boys' club. And that ex-husband of hers sounds like a real piece of work. Gloria patted his arm. Just be careful. Rich folks' problems have a way of becoming everybody's problems. Noam. The media tour went smoothly. Eleanor led reporters through the Grand Tower site, confidently addressing questions about timelines and finances. Stock prices stabilized. The rumors for now were contained. What the cameras didn't capture was Eleanor's exhaustion afterward. Back in her office, she slumped in her chair, the professional mask slipping. You handled that perfectly, Robert said, bringing her a cup of tea. The board is pleased. Richard won't stop here, Eleanor warned. This was just the opening move. Robert nodded gravely. Caroline found something. Westland Development, the company approaching Riverside property owners. Richard's the majority investor through a series of offshore accounts. Eleanor wasn't surprised. He's trying to box me in, block the Grand Tower project while simultaneously undermining our Riverside plans. It's personal for him, Robert observed. After all these years. It was always personal, Eleanor said quietly. I was just too focused on the business to see it. She thought of Michael and their conversations about measuring life differently. Perhaps she had miscalculated in more ways than one. There's something else, Robert added hesitantly. The man who rescued you, Michael Turner, HR completed their background check for the licensing program. And his architecture portfolio is exceptional. Cornell professors still reference his work, but there's an issue with his military discharge, a paperwork error that's prevented him from getting proper licensing. Eleanor frowned. What kind of error? Administrative, nothing dishonorable, but it's created a bureaucratic nightmare that's followed him for years. Another piece of the Michael Turner puzzle clicked into place. His reluctance to come forward after the accident, his wariness about her interest, it made more sense now. Fix it, Eleanor instructed. Quietly, respectfully, don't make him feel like a charity case. Robert nodded. Already in progress. After he left, Eleanor turned to the window, watching darkness fall over the city. She thought about Michael, his principles, his dedication to Lily, his quiet dignity, despite circumstances that would embitter many. She thought about Gloria Jenkins and her lifetime of memories, vulnerable to displacement by market forces beyond her control. And she thought about her father, who had taught her that success without principles was just organized greed. For the first time in years, Eleanor wondered if she'd been measuring the wrong metrics all along. Saturday at the park brought clear skies and a cool breeze. Michael arrived with Lily to find Eleanor already at their bench, a bakery box beside her. We brought muffins, she said by way of greeting. The bakery near my office makes them fresh. Eleanor, Lily exclaimed, we went to the museum yesterday and saw dinosaur bones. Real ones, Eleanor asked, matching the child's enthusiasm. As Lily launched into a detailed description of each prehistoric creature, Michael studied Eleanor. She looked tired, faint shadows visible beneath her expertly applied makeup. Yet her attention to Lily was genuine, her questions thoughtful. When Lily ran off to the playground, Eleanor turned to Michael. "Thank you for the information about Riverside. It's been helpful." "How are you holding up?" he asked, surprising them both with the personal question. Eleanor blinked. "I'm fine." "No, you're not," Michael said quietly. "But you're good at making people think you are." For a moment, Eleanor's careful composure wavered. "It's been a challenging week." "Richard," she nodded. "He's always been ruthless in business. But this feels different, more vindictive." "What happened between you two?" Michael asked. "If you don't mind my asking." Eleanor was silent for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. "We started Palmer Holdings together," she finally said. "I had the vision, he had family connections. For years it worked. I designed and developed projects. He handled the financing and networking." She watched Lily on the swings, her expression distant. "Then I discovered he was cutting corners on materials, bribing inspectors, putting profits above safety. We fought about it privately at first, then openly. The board had to choose sides." "They chose you," Michael guessed. "They chose the better business model," Eleanor corrected. "Richard's methods brought short-term gains but long-term liabilities. I proved that ethical development was more profitable over time." She smiled without humor. "He never forgave me for that being right and taking his company. The divorce was just collateral damage." Michael absorbed this. "And now he's back targeting your projects." "And the people connected to them," Eleanor confirmed, "which now includes Riverside, includes you and Lily." The protective concern in her voice was unmistakable. Michael felt something shift between them, a new understanding taking shape. "We can take care of ourselves," he assured her. "We always have." "I know you can," Eleanor said, "but maybe you shouldn't have to, not alone." Before Michael could respond, Lily called from the playground. "Daddy, Eleanor, watch me go down the big slide." They both turned to wave, momentarily united in their focus on the child. It was, Michael realized, the most natural they'd felt together, this shared attention to someone who needed them both. "I have your licensing paperwork," Eleanor said quietly. "The military discharge issue has been resolved. You can apply for full credentials whenever you're ready." Michael stiffened. "I didn't ask you to do that." "You didn't have to," Eleanor replied. "It was a bureaucratic error that should have been fixed years ago. All it took was the right contacts at the Veterans Administration. And Palmer Holdings just happens to have those contacts." "I have those contacts," Eleanor corrected. "My father served. I support veterans organizations." Michael wanted to be angry, to accuse her of overstepping, of trying to buy his gratitude, but the simple logic of her actions defied easy dismissal. She had seen a problem she could fix and fixed it without fanfare or expectation. "Thank you," he said finally. "That's been hanging over me for a long time." Eleanor nodded, accepting his gratitude without elaboration. It was perhaps the first completely uncomplicated exchange they'd shared. The moment was interrupted by Michael's phone. The screen showed Gloria's name. "Excuse me," he said, answering. "Gloria, what's wrong?" Eleanor watched his expression darken as he listened. "I'll be right there," he said, finally ending the call. "What's happened?" she asked. "Someone broke into Gloria's apartment while she was out," Michael explained, already rising. "Nothing valuable was taken, but her place was searched. She's pretty shaken up." "Let me come with you," Eleanor offered. Michael hesitated, then nodded. "Lily," he called, "we need to go see Mrs. Jenkins. Something's happened at her apartment." Gloria Jenkins sat rigidly on her sofa, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Two uniformed police officers stood nearby, looking simultaneously sympathetic and bored, clearly categorizing this as a minor break-in in a neighborhood where such things happened. "Nothing seems to be missing, ma'am," one officer was saying as Michael, Eleanor, and Lily entered. "Probably kids looking for parts or electronics." Gloria's relief at seeing them was palpable. "Michael, thank goodness. Are you okay?" he asked immediately, sitting beside her. "Just rattled," she admitted. "They went through everything, closets, drawers, even Frank's old papers." Eleanor approached the officers, her posture subtly shifting into what Michael had mentally labeled her CEO stance, back straight, chin slightly raised, eyes direct. "Has forensics been called?" she asked. The officer blinked clearly, reassessing the situation based on Eleanor's appearance and tone. Ma'am, for a simple break-in with no major theft. This wasn't a simple break-in, Eleanor interrupted smoothly. Mrs. Jenkins is a resident in a building owned by Palmer Holdings. We have reason to believe this may be connected to a larger pattern of harassment related to real estate interests in this neighborhood. She produced a business card. I'd like forensics called immediately, and I'll need a copy of the full report. Palmer Holdings will cover any additional departmental costs. The officer's demeanor changed instantly. One stepped away to make a call while the other began a more thorough examination of the entry points. Michael shot Eleanor an impressed look. She shrugged, slightly a silent, "This is what I do" gesture. Lily, meanwhile, had appointed herself Gloria's personal comforter, showing her a small stuffed cat she'd brought along. "Mr. Whiskers makes me feel better when I'm scared," she explained solemnly. Gloria managed a smile. "Thank you, sweetheart. You. That helps." As forensics arrived and began their work, Eleanor drew Michael aside. "This wasn't random," she said quietly. "They were looking for something specific." "Property documents," Michael guessed. "Lease agreements." "Possibly." Eleanor glanced at Gloria, who was now describing the break-in to a detective. "Or information about the other residents. Who might sell, who's vulnerable." Michael's jaw tightened. "Richard?" "It fits his pattern," Eleanor confirmed. "Information is leverage in real estate." The grim reality of the situation settled between them. This wasn't just business maneuvering anymore. It was affecting real people, vulnerable people. Gloria could have been hurt or worse. "What's our next move?" Michael asked, not even registering his use of "our." Eleanor noticed but didn't comment. "Security upgrades for the building immediately, and I think it's time I confronted Richard directly." "Is that wise?" "Probably not," she admitted. "But letting him operate in the shadows clearly isn't working." Later, after Gloria had been settled with a new security system, and Lily was asleep, Michael stood on his small balcony staring at the Pittsburgh skyline. The Grand Tower was visible in the distance, illuminated by construction lights. His phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor. "Security team will patrol Riverside tonight. Sleep well." The simple message carried more meaning than its few words suggested. Eleanor was protecting them not just as a business asset, but as people she cared about. Michael's thoughts drifted to the licensing paperwork she'd arranged, to her genuine interest in Lily, to the way she'd taken command of the situation at Gloria's apartment. Eleanor Palmer was complicated, driven, and sometimes overstepping, but her intentions were becoming increasingly clear. She was fighting for something larger than herself, larger even than her company. And somehow, Michael and Lily had become part of that fight. The realization should have troubled him more than it did. "He's here," Robert announced, appearing in Eleanor's office doorway. Eleanor closed the folder she'd been reviewing, preliminary designs for the Riverside renovation. "Send him in." Richard Mills entered with the confident stride of a man accustomed to occupying space unapologetically. At 46, he remained handsome in a polished, artificial way. Perfect teeth, perfect suit tailored to minimize his softening midsection. "Eleanor," he greeted her, his smile not reaching his eyes. "Still working in this glass cage, I see." "Richard," she replied evenly, "I appreciate you agreeing to meet." "How could I refuse? Your message sounded so urgent." He settled into a chair without waiting for an invitation. "Though I'm puzzled why you'd want to discuss Westland development with me. I'm merely an investor." "A controlling investor," Eleanor corrected, "through a labyrinth of shell companies that took my team 3 days to unravel." Richard's smile tightened. "Always the thorough one." "Let's dispense with the games," Eleanor said. "I know you're targeting the Riverside neighborhood. I know you've been approaching property owners, pressuring tenants, and now apparently resorting to break-ins." "Serious accusations," Richard commented, examining his manicured nails, "especially without evidence." "The police have evidence from Mrs. Jenkins' apartment," Eleanor countered, "and I have documentation of every property Westland has acquired in the area. It's a clear pattern of predatory development." Richard leaned forward, his casual demeanor hardening. "Still playing the righteous crusader, Eleanor. It was tiresome during our marriage, and it's tiresome now. This is business. The strong succeed, the weak get moved aside." "Is that what this is about, proving you're strong?" Eleanor kept her voice level despite her rising anger. "Breaking into an elderly woman's apartment, spreading false rumors about Grand Tower." A flicker of surprise crossed Richard's face. He hadn't expected her to connect those dots. The market responds to information, Eleanor. I merely provide it. Misinformation, she corrected, but it stops now. Richard laughed, the sound utterly devoid of humor. Or what, you'll run to the board again, cast me as the villain in another corporate morality play? No, Eleanor said quietly. I'll expose every questionable deal Westland has made, every building code violation, every instance of tenant harassment. I have the documentation, Richard. I have the witnesses. His expression darkened. You're bluffing. Try me. Eleanor slid a folder across the desk. This is a sample. Page 3 might particularly interest your investors, the ones who don't know about your history of material substitution. Richard didn't touch the folder. You always were willing to burn everything down to get your way. No, Richard, I'm willing to fight for what matters. Eleanor stood, signaling the meeting's end. Stay away from Riverside. Stay away from Palmer Holdings projects. Find another neighborhood to pillage. Richard rose slowly, buttoning his jacket with deliberate precision. You've changed, Eleanor. There was a time when you understood business is just business, nothing personal. That's where you're wrong, Eleanor replied. The best business is deeply personal. It's about people, communities, legacy. You never understood that. Richard's eyes narrowed. Your father really did a number on you with all that working-class hero nonsense. Look where it got him, fixing other people's cars until the day he died. Eleanor's voice turned to ice. My father died with his integrity intact and people who genuinely mourned him. Will you be able to say the same? Something dark flashed across Richard's face, a glimpse of the rage he usually kept carefully contained. This isn't over, Eleanor. Not by a long shot. After he left, Eleanor remained standing, adrenaline coursing through her. The confrontation had gone as expected. Richard was predictably arrogant, predictably threatening. But she hadn't anticipated how personally his dismissal of her father would affect her. James Palmer had worked 60-hour weeks at that garage, his hands perpetually stained with engine grease to give his daughter opportunities he never had. He taught her that a person's word was their bond, that cutting corners cost more in the long run, that how you treated people mattered more than what you achieved. Somewhere along the way, through business school, through building Palmer Holdings, through her marriage to Richard, some of those lessons had faded. Not disappeared, but dimmed beneath the harsh light of corporate success metrics. Now thinking of Gloria Jenkins' frightened face, of Lily's innocent trust, of Michael's principled stance, those early lessons were resurfacing with new clarity. Eleanor picked up her phone and dialed Carolyn. I need you to expedite the Riverside renovation plans, she said without preamble, and set up a community meeting with all current residents. It's time they knew exactly what we're planning. The community center at Riverside Apartments was filled beyond capacity. Residents crowded onto folding chairs, stood along the walls, whispered nervously to neighbors. Many were seniors who had lived in the building for decades. Others were young families drawn by the affordable rent. Michael stood near the back, Gloria beside him, Lily coloring quietly at their feet. He'd helped spread the word about the meeting, though Eleanor had been deliberately vague about its purpose. Do you know what she's planning? Gloria asked quietly. Michael shook his head. She said it was important that all residents should hear it directly from her. Gloria sniffed. Big announcements from property owners rarely benefit tenants. Before Michael could respond, Eleanor entered, accompanied by Robert and a woman Michael recognized as Caroline Weber, Palmer Holdings' legal counsel. Eleanor wore a simple gray suit, professional, but not ostentatious, and carried a portfolio rather than a tablet or laptop. The room quieted as she took position at the front, her posture straight but not rigid. Michael noticed she made eye contact with several residents, including Gloria, acknowledging them individually rather than addressing the crowd as a faceless whole. Thank you all for coming, Eleanor began. I'm Eleanor Palmer, CEO of Palmer Holdings, which recently acquired the Riverside Apartments. I know many of you are concerned about what this means for your homes and your community. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Eleanor waited for them to subside before continuing. Let me be direct. Riverside will be undergoing significant renovation beginning next month. Every unit will receive updates to plumbing, electrical systems, windows, security features, and common areas. The murmurs grew louder, more anxious. Eleanor raised a hand. I understand your concern. Typically, such renovations lead to substantial rent increases or even displacement. That will not happen here. She opened her portfolio displaying the first of several architectural renderings. Riverside will become a pilot for Palmer Holdings' mixed-income housing initiative. Current residents will be guaranteed units at their current rental rates with increases limited to cost of living adjustments only. Disbelief and cautious hope mingled in the expressions around the room. During renovation, we will arrange temporary housing in comparable units nearby with all moving expenses covered. When you return, your apartment will be safer, more energy efficient, and more comfortable, but still your home at a price you can afford. Gloria leaned toward Michael. Is she serious? I think she is, Michael replied, watching Eleanor's confident, measured delivery. Why are you doing this? Called an elderly man from the front row. What's the catch? Eleanor acknowledged the question with a nod. It's a fair question, Mr. Daniels. The financial model is complex, but essentially we'll add 2 new floors with market rate units that will subsidize the existing affordable units. The building's improved energy efficiency will reduce operating costs, and Palmer Holdings will receive tax incentives for creating sustainable mixed-income housing. She paused, then added something unexpected. But the honest answer to why, because neighborhoods like Riverside are the backbone of this city, because mixed-income communities are healthier communities, and because it's the right thing to do. The simplicity of this last statement hung in the air, devoid of corporate jargon or platitudes. Eleanor continued outlining renovation timelines, temporary relocation procedures, and the community input process for design elements. As she spoke, Michael observed the gradual shift in the room's energy, from suspicion to cautious optimism, from fear to tentative engagement. When she opened the floor for questions, residents didn't hold back. They asked about specifics, what appliances would be included, whether pets would still be allowed, how security would be handled. Eleanor answered each question directly, deferring to Robert or Carolyn when necessary, but never dismissing concerns as trivial. Gloria raised her hand. What happens if this Westland development buys the surrounding buildings? Won't they just wall us off anyway? A ripple of concern moved through the room. Clearly, others had been approached by Westland representatives. An excellent question, Mrs. Jenkins, Eleanor acknowledged. Palmer Holdings has secured purchase options on several strategic properties surrounding Riverside specifically to prevent that scenario. Additionally, we're working with the City Planning Commission to ensure future development maintains neighborhood connectivity. The meeting continued for nearly 2 hours. Throughout, Eleanor remained engaged, present, and surprisingly transparent about both the business and community aspects of the project. It was, Michael realized, a masterclass in ethical development, communication, not manipulating residents, but genuinely involving them. As the meeting wound down, Lily tugged at Michael's hand. Is Eleanor going to make our home prettier? Looks that way, sunshine, he replied, his eyes still on Eleanor as she spoke earnestly with an elderly couple. Good, Lily declared. I want a purple room. Gloria chuckled. Well, I'm not completely convinced, but I'll say this, she's not what I expected. No, Michael agreed quietly. She's not. Later, as the crowd dispersed, Eleanor approached them. The controlled confidence of her presentation had softened, revealing the fatigue beneath. Well, she asked, a hint of vulnerability in her voice. What did you think impressive? Michael said honestly, though the real test will be following through. Eleanor nodded, accepting the implied challenge. We will. I've already appointed a resident advisory committee to monitor progress and ensure accountability. Smart, Gloria commented, though I notice you didn't mention your ex-husband's involvement in all this. No point adding fuel to that particular fire, Eleanor replied. Besides, this meeting wasn't about Richard or Westland. It was about Riverside's future. A community center staff member approached, informing them they needed to lock up. As they moved toward the exit, Eleanor fell into step beside Michael. There's something else, she said quietly, something I didn't mention in the meeting. Michael raised an eyebrow questioningly. I'd like you to consider joining the project team, Eleanor said. Not as a construction worker, but as a design consultant. Your architectural background combined with your practical experience would be invaluable. Michael stopped walking, studying her face for any sign of manipulation or charity. He found none, only professional respect and something warmer, more personal. You're serious, he realized. Completely, Eleanor confirmed. This is a business decision, Michael. You understand both the technical aspects and the human impact of housing design. That's a rare combination. Before he could respond, a commotion erupted outside the community center. Raised voices, then the distinctive sound of breaking glass. They rushed outside to find a small group of young men fleeing the scene. Behind them, Eleanor's town car sat with its windows shattered, bright red spray paint covering its sides. The message was crude but clear. Palmer in Parasite. Robert was already on the phone with security. Caroline was documenting the damage with her phone's camera. Eleanor stood perfectly still, her expression unreadable. Michael moved to her side. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," she said automatically, though her slightly trembling hand suggested otherwise. Lily pressed against Michael's leg, eyes wide at the destruction. "Why did they hurt Eleanor's car?" Eleanor knelt to Lily's level, her voice gentle despite the circumstances. "Sometimes people are angry about things they don't understand. They think I'm going to change their neighborhood in ways they don't want." "But you're making it better," Lily said with a child's simple logic. "I hope so," Eleanor replied, "but change is scary, even good change." As police arrived and statements were taken, Michael observed Eleanor's composure, the way she maintained dignity without arrogance, the way she calmed the alarmed community center staff, the way she prioritized others' concerns above her own. This wasn't the calculating CEO who had appeared at his door weeks ago. This was someone more complex, more human, someone who had taken significant business and personal risks to protect a community she had no obligation to care about. When Eleanor's replacement car arrived, she turned to Michael and Gloria. "I should go. There will be statements to prepare, security assessments to review." "Always working," Michael commented, not unkindly. "It's what I do," Eleanor replied with a small smile. "Though lately I'm remembering there are other things too." Her gaze dropped to Lily, who had fallen asleep against Michael's shoulder, exhausted by the evening's events. Something softened in Eleanor's expression, a tenderness she rarely allowed herself to display. "Consider my offer," she said quietly. "The project needs your perspective. No strings attached." As her car pulled away, Gloria gave Michael a knowing look. "That woman's fighting for something bigger than a building, Michael. And I think she's fighting for you and Lily too, whether she admits it or not." Michael watched the taillights disappear around a corner, Gloria's words settling into his consciousness. The lines between professional and personal, between obligation and choice, between past and future, were blurring in ways he hadn't anticipated. What had begun with a simple act of rescue was evolving into something far more complex, a reshaping of lives, priorities, and possibilities that neither he nor Eleanor could have foreseen. And despite every instinct for caution, every hard-learned lesson about self-reliance, Michael found himself drawn toward whatever lay ahead. The next morning, he texted Eleanor a single sentence: "I'll consult on the project. When do we start?" Her reply came minutes later. "Today, and Michael, thank you for trusting me." Trust, such a simple word for such a complicated concept. Yet as Michael prepared for the day ahead, he realized that's exactly what was happening, step by careful step. He was beginning to trust Eleanor Palmer. And perhaps more surprisingly, she was beginning to trust herself. The Riverside Renovation Command Center occupied what had once been the building's defunct laundry room. Architectural renderings covered the walls, material samples, filled shelves, and a large table dominated the center, typically strewn with blueprints in contractor bids. It was here 6 weeks into the project that Michael found himself spending most days. This morning, he hunched over revised bathroom designs, making minor adjustments to accommodate the needs of elderly residents. The door opened, admitting Eleanor with 2 coffee cups and a folder tucked under her arm. "You're here early," she observed, setting a cup beside him. "Couldn't sleep," Michael admitted. "Lily's ear infection is back. Had to take her to the emergency room at 2 a.m. Concern immediately replaced Eleanor's professional demeanor. "Is she okay? Why didn't you call me?" The question hung between them, intimate, revealing more than perhaps she'd intended. "She's fine," Michael assured her. "On antibiotics again. Gloria's watching her today." Eleanor nodded, sipping her coffee to cover the moment of vulnerability. "I have news about Richard." "Good or bad?" "Complicated," Eleanor replied, opening her folder. "Westland Development is facing liquidity issues. Several investors have pulled out after receiving anonymous information about their business practices." "Anonymous?" Michael raised an eyebrow. A ghost of a smile touched Eleanor's lips, completely untraceable. But the important part is, they've suspended acquisition efforts around Riverside. We have breathing room. That's good news, Michael said, studying her face. So why do you look worried? Eleanor set down her cup. Because Richard, when cornered, becomes Richard at his most dangerous. This isn't over. Her candor was something Michael had come to appreciate. In their weeks working together, Eleanor had gradually shed the corporate armor she wore in other settings, allowing him glimpses of the woman beneath, thoughtful, occasionally vulnerable, fiercely principled, in ways that surprised him. The renovation is proceeding on schedule, Michael noted, redirecting to safer territory. First group of residents move back next week. Including Gloria, Michael nodded. She's already planning a housewarming party. You're invited, by the way, explicitly and by name. I am, Eleanor sounded genuinely surprised. You've won her over, Michael confirmed. The grab bars in the bathroom and the emergency call system were apparently the deciding factors. Eleanor's expression softened. Those were your design recommendations, not mine. But you approved them without questioning the quad, Michael pointed out. That made an impression. A comfortable silence settled between them as they reviewed the day's tasks. Their working relationship had developed an easy rhythm. Michael's practical construction knowledge complementing Eleanor's strategic vision, his attention to individual residents' needs, balancing her focus on the project's larger impact. Lily asked about you yesterday, Michael said casually. Wanted to know if you'd come to her school play next week. She's a flower, non-speaking role, but apparently crucial to the plot. Eleanor looked up, clearly touched but hesitant. I wouldn't want to intrude on a family event. You wouldn't be, Michael said simply. She wants you there. The unspoken extension hung in the air. And so do I. Before Eleanor could respond, her phone buzzed insistently. She glanced at it, her expression darkening. I need to take this. It's Caroline. She stepped outside, leaving Michael to wonder at the shift in her demeanor. Their cautious dance towards something more personal had become a pattern, moments of connection interrupted by the demands of Eleanor's world steps forward, followed by strategic retreats. When she returned minutes later, her CEO mask was firmly back in place. I need to go. There's a situation with the Grand Tower project. Serious, potentially, she acknowledged. A structural issue that wasn't in the original reports. The engineering team is investigating. Michael frowned. What kind of structural issue? They're not sure yet. Possibly substandard materials in the foundation supports. Eleanor gathered her things with efficient movements. I'll have Robert email you the preliminary reports. Leaner, Michael said, stopping her retreat. Be careful, this timing is suspicious. Their eyes met in shared understanding. Richard. Always, she promised, her professional veneer softening momentarily. And Michael, tell Lily I'd be honored to attend her theatrical debut. After she left, Michael returned to his designs, but his mind remained on Eleanor. In the weeks they'd worked together, he'd watched her navigate business crises, community concerns, and personal attacks with a grace that belied her reputation as a ruthless CEO. The woman who emerged was complex-driven, but compassionate, powerful, but increasingly willing to show vulnerability. The Grand Tower situation troubled him. Construction sites were dangerous enough without potential sabotage. And if Richard was involved, Michael reached for his phone, sending a brief text. Let me know if you need another set of eyes on those structural reports. Stay safe. Her reply came quickly. Will do. Don't worry about me. Focus on Lily and those bathroom designs. I need your best work, Turner. The use of his last name, a callback to their earliest interactions, made him smile despite his concern. Eleanor Palmer was many things, but never predictable. The Grand Tower site hummed with unusual tension. Engineers in hard hats clustered around exposed foundation elements, pointing and conferring in low voices. Construction had been temporarily halted, an expensive decision that Eleanor wouldn't have made without serious cause. She stood slightly apart, listening as the lead structural engineer explained the situation. The laboratory results confirm it, Ms. Palmer. The concrete mixture in these support pillars doesn't match specifications. It's been diluted, still technically within code, but well below what we ordered and paid for. Deliberately, Eleanor asked, though she already knew the answer. The pattern is too consistent for error, the engineer confirmed. Someone systematically reduced the strength of these specific support elements. Eleanor surveyed the site, mind racing through implications. Safety assessment. The structure isn't in immediate danger, but long-term integrity would be compromised. These supports need to be replaced before construction proceeds. Cost and timeline impact. 3 to 4 weeks minimum. As for cost, the engineer named a figure that made even Eleanor wince. Begin replacement immediately, she instructed. I want 24-hour security on the site, access restricted to essential personnel only, and daily material testing going forward. After the engineer departed, Robert approached. The board is requesting an emergency meeting. They're concerned about both the financial impact and potential liability. Schedule it for tomorrow morning, Eleanor replied. And Robert, bring the Westland development files. All of them. You think Richard is behind this? Robert asked quietly. I know he is, Eleanor said. The question is whether we can prove it and how many other surprises he's left for us to find. Later, alone in her office, Eleanor stared at financial projections that had suddenly become much more challenging. The Grand Tower's setback would strain resources already committed to the Riverside renovation. The board would pressure her to cut corners, perhaps even abandon the mixed-income housing model that had become increasingly important to her. Her phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Lily's play is at 4 p.m. Thursday. No pressure, but there's a flower costume involved that has to be seen to be believed. The simple message, so removed from corporate crises and vindictive ex-husbands, brought an unexpected smile to Eleanor's face. 6 months ago, her response to the current challenges would have been straightforward and work. Harder, sleep, less sacrifice, everything personal until the problem was solved. Now she found herself typing, wouldn't miss it, save me a seat. The Eleanor of a year ago wouldn't recognize the woman she was becoming, one who measured success in more than profit margins, in stock prices, who was learning that vulnerability wasn't weakness, but a different kind of strength. As she returned to the grim financial projections, Eleanor felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Certainty that whatever sacrifices were required, they wouldn't include the people who had unexpectedly become important to her. Some commitments she was discovering mattered more than balance sheets. And then the caterpillar turns into a beautiful butterfly, announced the narrator as children in colorful costumes twirled across the elementary school stage. Among them, Lily Turner performed her flower role with solemn dedication, remembering to sway when the wind, a child with blue streamers, danced past. From his seat in the second row, Michael watched with the besotted pride unique to parents, recording every moment on his phone. Beside him sat Eleanor, equally attentive, though perhaps less familiar with the chaotic energy of children's theater. She had arrived precisely on time, having come directly from the board meeting, still in her business attire, but with her hair loosened from its usual severe style. She's wonderful, Eleanor whispered, as Lily delivered her one crucial action, opening her petals to welcome the butterfly. Michael nodded, too full of paternal pride for words. What he didn't say was how much Lily had talked about Eleanor coming, how carefully she had picked which flower to be. Daisies are friendly flowers. Daddy and I want Eleanor to feel welcome. How many times she had practiced her petal opening to get it just right. After the performance, parents and children mingled in the school cafeteria over punch and cookies. Lily ran to them, still in her flower costume, face flushed with excitement. Did you see me? Did you see when I opened my petals for the butterfly? You were the best flower on that stage, Michael assured her, kneeling to her level. What did you think, Eleanor? Lily asked, turning her earnest gaze upward. Eleanor knelt as well, meeting Lily on her level, something Michael had noticed she always did, treating the child with the same respect she showed adults. I thought you were absolutely magnificent, Eleanor said solemnly. The way you swayed in the wind was so graceful. Lily beamed, then leaned closer to whisper loudly, I was a little scared, but I remembered what you said about being brave even when you're afraid. Michael glanced at Eleanor, surprised. She caught his look and explained, we had a conversation about courage when Lily was nervous about her doctor's appointment. Eleanor said brave people feel scared too. They just do the scary thing anyway, Lily elaborated. So I was a brave flower. The bravest, Eleanor agreed, her normally composed features softening with genuine affection. As Lily ran off to join her classmates, Michael and Eleanor stood, finding themselves unexpectedly close in the crowded cafeteria. Michael became acutely aware of Eleanor's presence, the subtle scent of her perfume, the way her professional facade had given way to something more authentic. Thank you for coming, he said. It meant a lot to her. To her, Eleanor asked quietly, her eyes meeting his with unexpected directness. The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken possibilities. Then a teacher approached, breaking the connection. Mr. Turner, Lily's teacher, would like a while about the upcoming field trip. Michael nodded reluctantly, stepping away. I'll be right back. When he returned, Eleanor was engaged in conversation with Gloria, who had arrived late but insisted on seeing Lily's performance. The two women presented a study in contrast, Gloria in her practical sweater and sensible shoes, Eleanor in her tailored suit and heels. Yet they spoke with the ease of mutual respect, if not quite friendship. Michael, Gloria greeted him. Eleanor was just telling me about the community garden being added to Riverside. My Frank would have loved that. He always wanted a place to grow tomatoes. We've allocated plots for each interested resident, Eleanor explained. The rooftop location gets excellent sun exposure. The casual way she included Gloria in the conversation, treating her input as valuable rather than perfunctory, was another example of how Eleanor had changed since their first meeting. The corporate armor was still there when needed, but it no longer defined her. As they prepared to leave Lily between them, clutching both their hands, Michael found himself studying Eleanor's profile. The woman who had once seemed solely focused on empire building now chatted easily with his daughter about flower varieties for the garden, her expression animated in a way he rarely saw in professional settings. Can Eleanor come for dinner, Daddy? Lily asked as they reached the parking lot. I want to show her my rock collection. I found 3 new special ones. Michael glanced at Eleanor, expecting a polite demurral, a meeting to attend, reports to review, some obligation of her high-powered life. Instead, she surprised him. I'd like that if it's not an imposition. Never, Michael said, simply realizing as he spoke that he meant it. Their evening unfolded with unexpected ease. Take-out Chinese food on Michael's small balcony, Lily's earnest presentation of rocks, with elaborate backstories, conversation that flowed naturally from work to more personal topics. Eleanor fit into their modest apartment and simple routines as if she belonged there, her usual intensity mellowed, but not diminished. After Lily went to bed, they sat with coffee, the nighttime city spread before them, Grand Tower visible in the distance. How bad is it? Michael asked quietly. The board meeting about the foundation issues. Eleanor sighed, setting down her cup. They want to scale back the Riverside renovations. Reduce costs to offset the Grand Tower expenses. And you said that Riverside proceeds as planned, non-negotiable. Eleanor's tone held the steel that had built her company. We'll find the money elsewhere. Michael studied her in the dim light. Why is this project so important to you, really? Eleanor was silent for a long moment, gathering thoughts rarely articulated. When I started Palmer Holdings, I had this vision of creating spaces that improved lives, buildings that weren't just profitable but meaningful. Somewhere along the way, particularly after the divorce, that vision narrowed to proving I could succeed on traditional metrics. She looked toward Grand Tower, its skeletal outline illuminated against the night sky. Riverside is a return to that original vision, a chance to build something that matters beyond the bottom line. Her candor touched something in Michael. And Richard's sabotage is being handled, Eleanor assured him, though tension tightened her features. We've traced the substandard materials to a supplier with connections to Westland. It's not enough for legal action yet, but we're building a case. Michael reached across the small table, covering her hand with his. You don't have to fight this alone, you know. Eleanor looked at their joined hands, then met his gaze with unexpected vulnerability. I've been fighting alone for so long, I'm not sure I remember how to do it any other way. Maybe it's time to learn, Michael suggested softly. The moment balanced on a knife's edge of possibility. Then Eleanor's phone shattered the silence with an urgent ring. She checked the screen, her expression immediately shifting to alarm. I have to take this. It's security at Grand Tower. The call was brief, but clearly disturbing. When she hung up, Eleanor was already gathering her things, CEO mask firmly back in place. There's been a break-in at the site, she explained tersely. The new foundation materials have been compromised. I need to go. Michael stood. I'm coming with you. Michael, this isn't your problem. It became my problem the moment it started affecting you, he interrupted quietly. Let me call Gloria to stay with Lily. We'll take my truck. Something in his tone, not asking permission but stating intention, seemed to penetrate Eleanor's crisis mode. She nodded once, a silent acknowledgement that perhaps she didn't have to handle everything alone after all. The Grand Tower site was awash in harsh security lights and police activity. Yellow tape cordoned off areas and forensics teams worked methodically among the foundation structures. Eleanor moved through the chaos with focused efficiency, conferring with security personnel and site managers. Michael followed his construction experience, giving him immediate insight into the situation. Someone had systematically sabotaged the newly delivered foundation materials, not damaging them, obviously, but subtly altering their composition in ways that would have been catastrophic if undetected. The security cameras were disabled for exactly 12 minutes, the head of security explained. Professional job. Eleanor's face remained impassive, but Michael saw the slight tremor in her hands, not fear but carefully controlled fury. Ms. Palmer called a detective approaching with a small evidence bag. We found this near the compromised materials. Inside the bag was a small gold cufflink, monogrammed with the initials RM. Eleanor stared at it, her composure faltering momentarily. Richards, she confirmed. He always was too arrogant to cover his tracks completely. It could be planted, Michael pointed out, to make it obvious. Perhaps, Eleanor acknowledged, but it's his style to make sure I know it's him while maintaining plausible deniability. The detective took detailed notes before moving on, leaving Eleanor and Michael momentarily alone amid the bustle of investigation. This isn't just business anymore, Michael said quietly. This is dangerous, Eleanor. He could have killed people if this hadn't been caught. I know. Her voice was steady, but her eyes revealed the weight of responsibility. The police are involved now. We have evidence, witnesses. Will it be enough? Eleanor's silence was answer enough. Men like Richard Mills rarely face consequences proportionate to their actions. They worked through the night, Eleanor directing a complete security overhaul, Michael using his construction expertise to help assess the full extent of the sabotage. By dawn, they had a clear picture of both the damage and the intended outcome. Had construction proceeded with the compromised materials, eventual structural failure would have been inevitable. As they finally left the site, exhaustion hung heavy on both of them. In Michael's truck, Eleanor leaned back against the headrest, the polished CEO veneer cracked by fatigue and worry. He won't stop, she said quietly. Not until he's destroyed everything I've built. Michael drove in silence for a moment, considering his next words carefully. What if you gave him what he wants? Eleanor turned to him, confusion evident. What do you mean? Not literally, Michael clarified. But what if you made him think he'd won? Let him believe Grand Tower is failing, that Palmer Holdings is in trouble. A trap, Eleanor realized, fatigue giving way to strategic consideration. Draw him out by appearing vulnerable. Exactly, Michael confirmed. He's been operating from the shadows. Force him into the open. Eleanor was silent for several minutes, mind working through scenarios and contingencies. It could work, she finally said, but it would be risky. Palmer Holdings stock would take a hit. Investors would panic. Is catching Richard worth that? It's not just about catching him, Eleanor replied. It's about ending this so I can focus on what matters. The simple statement hung between them, laden with meaning beyond the immediate crisis. What mattered to Eleanor Palmer was evolving from pure business success to something more nuanced, more personal. I'll help, Michael offered simply. Whatever you need. Eleanor studied his profile in the early morning light, this man who had pulled her from wreckage, both literal and metaphorical. Why, she asked softly. This isn't your fight. Michael pulled the truck to a stop outside Eleanor's building. Because some things are worth fighting for, he said, echoing words she had spoken weeks earlier about Riverside. Some people are worth fighting for. The air between them charged with unspoken feelings, with possibilities neither had fully acknowledged. Eleanor reached across the console, her hand finding his. Thank you, she said, the simple words carrying a depth of meaning beyond their syllables. As she exited the truck, Eleanor paused. Michael, bring Lily to my place for dinner tomorrow. I think we all need something normal after this. Normal. Such a simple concept, yet one that had been absent from Eleanor's life for longer than she cared to admit. The realization that she now associated normalcy with Michael and Lily was both surprising and somehow inevitable. Eleanor's penthouse reflected her traditional aesthetic, elegant, minimal, tastefully expensive. Yet subtle changes had appeared in recent months. A child's drawing hung framed beside a modern art piece. A bookshelf contained architectural volumes that weren't merely decorative, but showed signs of regular use. A throw blanket added a touch of casual comfort to the precisely arranged living room. Tonight, the formal dining table had been abandoned in favor of the kitchen island, where Eleanor arranged takeout containers with more attention than such casual fare typically warranted. "Are you nervous?" Carolyn asked, amused by her friend's uncharacteristic fussing. The great Eleanor Palmer anxious about dinner with a construction worker and his daughter. "He's not just a construction worker," Eleanor corrected automatically. "And yes, perhaps I am a bit concerned about the evening going well." Carolyn's expression softened. "I haven't seen you like this in years, Elle. Not since before Richard." "Like what?" Eleanor busied herself with wine glasses, avoiding her friend's knowing gaze. "Happy," Carolyn said simply. "Despite everything with the Grand Tower and the board and Richard's sabotage, you are happy when you talk about Michael and Lily." Before Eleanor could formulate a response that balanced honesty with her instinctive privacy, the doorbell rang. She smoothed her casual sweater, deliberately chosen over her usual evening attire, and went to answer. Michael stood in the hallway, Lily beside him, clutching a small gift bag. Both had clearly made an effort, Michael in a button-down shirt rather than his usual t-shirt, Lily with a ribbon in her neatly brushed hair. "We brought dessert," Lily announced, holding up the bag. "Daddy said it's polite to bring something when you're invited to dinner." "That's very thoughtful," Eleanor said, kneeling to accept the gift. "Would you like to see where it goes in the kitchen?" As Lily bounded ahead, Michael and Eleanor shared a moment of quiet understanding, an acknowledgement of the unusual circumstances that had brought them to this point and the increasingly undeniable connection developing between them. "Nice place," Michael commented as they followed Lily. "Though I notice a few changes since I was here last." Eleanor smiled slightly. "Growth and adaptation, as you once put it." The evening unfolded with surprising ease. Caroline, initially reserved, warmed to Michael's quiet intelligence and Lily's infectious enthusiasm. Conversation flowed naturally from safe topics to more personal ones, punctuated by Lily's delightful non-sequiturs. Later, after Lily had fallen asleep on Eleanor's sofa and Caroline had departed, Michael and Eleanor stood on her balcony. The city lights spread below them like earthbound stars. "Your plan to trap Richard," Michael began. "Have you decided?" Eleanor nodded. "We leak information about financial troubles at Palmer Holdings, spread rumors about Grand Tower being behind schedule and over budget, not entirely untrue, Quito, thanks to his sabotage. Make it appear that the board is losing confidence in my leadership. And when he makes his move, we'll be ready," Eleanor assured him. "Carolyn has prepared legal documentation of every suspicious incident. The police are monitoring all Palmer Holdings properties, and I've spoken confidentially with key board members who understand what we're doing." Michael studied her profile, impressed by her strategic mind, but concerned about the personal toll. "And if it doesn't work, if he escalates further?" Eleanor was silent for a long moment. "Then I'll have decisions to make about what matters most." The weight of those potential decisions hung between them. Grand Tower represented Eleanor's professional pinnacle, the culmination of years of work and sacrifice. Yet standing in her carefully curated penthouse with Lily asleep on her sofa and Michael beside her, different priorities were taking shape. "Whatever happens," Michael said quietly, "you're not facing it alone anymore." Eleanor turned to him, professional masks and careful distances momentarily abandoned. "I'm beginning to understand that," she admitted. "It's unfamiliar territory." "For both of us," Michael acknowledged, thinking of the years he'd spent ensuring he needed no one could handle everything himself for Lily's sake. Their eyes held the moment, expanding to encompass all that remained unsaid between them. Then Michael glanced at his watch, reluctantly breaking the connection. "I should get Lily home," he said. "School tomorrow." Eleanor nodded, though disappointment flickered briefly across her features. "Of course." As Michael gathered the sleeping Lily, Eleanor held the door, their hands brushing as she passed him Lily's small jacket. The contact, brief as it was, sent an undeniable current between them. "Thank you for tonight," Michael said. "It meant a lot to Lily, to both of us." "Come to the Riverside completion ceremony next week," Eleanor replied. "Gloria would be disappointed if you missed it." "Just Gloria?" Michael asked, a hint of teasing in his voice. Eleanor's smile held a warmth rarely seen in her corporate persona. "Not just Gloria," she admitted quietly. After they left, Eleanor moved through her penthouse, gathering dishes and straightening cushions, disturbed by Lily's exuberant presence. The space felt different somehow, warmer, more lived in, yet emptier in their absence. Her phone buzzed with a message from Caroline. Board meeting tomorrow 9 a.m. Rumor operation begins. Are you sure about this? Eleanor typed her response without hesitation. Completely. Time to end this. Setting down the phone, she picked up the child's drawing Lily had given her weeks ago, a colorful rendering of three stick figures labeled Daddy, Lily, Akrim, and Eleanor, holding hands beneath a bright sun. Such a simple image, yet it represented a future Eleanor had never imagined for herself, where success was measured in connection rather than acquisition, and belonging rather than achieving. Whatever came next with Richard, with Grand Tower, with Palmer Holdings itself, this, she was beginning to understand, was what truly mattered. The Riverside completion ceremony was designed as a community celebration rather than a corporate event. The renovated courtyard hosted tables of food, a small local band, and residents of all ages mingling with obvious pleasure in their transformed home. Michael stood with Gloria watching Eleanor chat easily with an elderly couple who had lived in Riverside for 40 years. Gone was the formal CEO attire, replaced by casual elegance that allowed her to move comfortably among the residents without creating distance. She's done good here, Gloria admitted, surveying the improvements with approval. Never thought I'd say that about a developer, but credit where it's due. She fought for this project, Michael confirmed. Even when the board wanted to cut funding after the Grand Tower issues, Gloria's shrewd eyes missed nothing. And she's fighting for you and Lily too, isn't she? Before Michael could respond, Lily ran up, face painted with a butterfly design. Daddy, Eleanor said we can plant sunflowers in the community garden, really tall ones. Did she now? Michael smiled at his daughter's excitement. Well, if Eleanor said so, I guess we're growing sunflowers. She's over there, Lily pointed, talking to the important people. The important people were actually city council members whose support had been crucial for the project's zoning approvals. Eleanor stood among them, gracious but clearly in command of the conversation. Go tell Eleanor we need to discuss these sunflower plans, Michael suggested to Lily. I'll be right here with Mrs. Jenkins. As Lily skipped away, Gloria gave Michael a knowing look. That woman has changed since she met you two, she observed. Less corporate robot, more actual human. She was always human, Michael corrected gently, just had different priorities. And now, Michael watched as Eleanor knelt to listen intently to Lily's sunflower vision, giving the child her complete attention despite the hovering council members. Now I think she's remembering what matters beyond balance sheets. And you, Gloria pressed, what matters to you beyond Lily? The direct question caught Michael off guard. Since Catherine left, he had focused exclusively on providing stability for Lily, setting aside personal desires and ambitions as luxuries he couldn't afford. Before he could formulate a response, a commotion near the entrance drew their attention. Richard Mills had arrived, his expensive suit and arrogant bearing immediately setting him apart from the Riverside residents. Eleanor straightened instinctively, placing Lily slightly behind her as she spotted her ex-husband. Her expression shifted from warm engagement to cool professionalism in an instant. Michael moved quickly to join them, positioning himself beside Eleanor as Richard approached. Eleanor, Richard greeted with false warmth. What a charming little project. His gaze swept dismissively over the renovated courtyard before settling on Michael and Lily with obvious curiosity. Richard, Eleanor acknowledged coolly, this is a private community event. I don't recall sending you an invitation. The financial pages extended the invitation. Richard replied, his smile not reaching his eyes. Palmer Holdings stock down 12%, Grand Tower behind schedule. Board members expressing concerns about leadership. How could I resist seeing the great Eleanor Palmer's charitable distraction while her empire crumbles? The strategic leaks had clearly worked. Richard believed Eleanor vulnerable, her position weakened. He had emerged from the shadows exactly as planned. My company is doing just fine, Eleanor replied evenly, but I appreciate your concern. Richard's attention shifted to Michael, his gaze calculating. And who might this be? Not the usual corporate type you surround yourself with. Michael Turner, Eleanor said, her voice warming slightly, chief design consultant for Riverside and a close personal friend. The slight emphasis on personal wasn't lost on Richard. His eyes narrowed. I see. expanding your social circle to include the working class. How democratic of you. Before Eleanor could respond, Lily stepped forward, regarding Richard with frank curiosity. Are you the bad man who broke Eleanor's car? A moment of startled silence followed the child's direct question. Richard recovered first, his laugh brittle. Children and their imaginations. Charming. Lily, Michael said quietly, why don't you go help Mrs. Jenkins with the dessert table? Once Lily was safely out of earshot, Richard's facade of civility dropped further. Really, Eleanor, playing house with a construction worker and his brat while your company faces a crisis. The board will be fascinated to hear where your priorities lie these days. Michael tensed, but Eleanor's hand on his arm kept him in place. Her voice when she spoke carried the steel that had built her company. My priorities are exactly where they should be, Richard. On building things that last, on creating value beyond the next quarterly report. She stepped closer, her voice dropping. And on ensuring that people who sabotage construction sites, endangering innocent lives, face consequences. Richard's expression flickered. Careful, Eleanor. Accusations without proof are slander. Oh, I have proof, Eleanor assured him. Security footage, material analysis, witness statements. Even a certain monogrammed cufflink carelessly left behind. For the first time, uncertainty crossed Richard's face. You're bluffing. Am I? Eleanor's smile was cold. The police are very interested in the Grand Tower sabotage. Attempted manslaughter carries significant prison time, I'm told. Richard's composure slipped further. You can't prove anything. I already have, Eleanor replied. The crisis at Palmer Holdings, a carefully crafted fiction to draw you out. The board isn't losing confidence in me, Richard. They're cooperating with the investigation into Westland Development's criminal activities. The truth dawned in Richard's eyes, quickly replaced by fury. You set me up. You set yourself up, Eleanor corrected. I simply created the opportunity for you to reveal who you truly are. Richard's gaze darted around, noting for the first time that several residents were actually plainclothes security personnel strategically positioned around the courtyard. He had walked into a trap of his own making. This isn't over, he hissed, backing away. You haven't heard the last from me. Actually, I believe I have, Eleanor replied calmly. 2 detectives are waiting by your car, Richard. I suggest you go quietly. For old time's sake. As Richard retreated, fury evident in every line of his body, Michael turned to Eleanor. Are they really arresting him? Not yet, she admitted, but they're serving him with documents, legal and financial, that will effectively end his ability to threaten Palmer Holdings or anyone associated with it. The criminal charges will follow once the forensic evidence is processed. Relief and admiration mingled in Michael's expression. You planned this all along. Not all along, Eleanor corrected. Not until someone reminded me that some things are worth fighting for. Their eyes met in silent understanding. Eleanor had orchestrated Richard's downfall, not just to protect her company, but to secure a future where threats and fear no longer shadowed her choices, personal or professional. Before Michael could respond, Lily returned, oblivious to the drama that had unfolded. Is the mean man gone? She asked, glancing around. Eleanor knelt to her level. Yes, sweetheart, and he won't be bothering us again. Good, Lily declared. He wasn't invited to our party anyway. The simple child's logic broke the tension, drawing smiles from both adults. As Lily skipped away to join the other children, Eleanor and Michael found themselves momentarily alone amid the celebration. What happens now? Michael asked quietly. Eleanor considered the question, its implications, extending far beyond Richard's departure. Now we build something that lasts, she said simply. If you're willing. The words hung between them, laden with meaning beyond the renovation project or Grand Tower. Michael studied her face, the confident CEO who had orchestrated a corporate trap, and the increasingly vulnerable woman who had knelt to comfort his daughter with equal authenticity. I've been building temporary things for a long time, he said finally. I think I'm ready for something permanent. Understanding passed between them, an acknowledgement that whatever was developing between them deserved care, deserved time, deserved the same thoughtful construction they brought to their professional collaborations. Eleanor's smile held promise rather than certainty. Then we'll build it right, one day at a time. As they rejoined the celebration, moving among the residents whose lives had been improved by their combined efforts, Eleanor found herself surrounded by the evidence of what she and Michael had already created together, A community renewed a vision, realized a future taking shape that honored both their pasts while creating something entirely new. Gloria approached, observing their closeness with approval. Well, that unpleasant man certainly didn't stay long. He found the reception less welcoming than anticipated, Eleanor replied diplomatically. Gloria nodded sagely. Good. Now you two should know I volunteered to watch Lily overnight next weekend. My granddaughter's visiting, and they get along like a house on fire. Michael raised an eyebrow at the transparent matchmaking. Gloria, don't Gloria me, Michael Turner, the older woman interrupted. I've watched you two dancing around each other for months. At my age, you learn not to waste time when something good is right in front of you. With that parting wisdom, she moved away, leaving Michael and Eleanor in amused silence. She's not subtle, Michael observed. But she's not wrong, Eleanor replied softly. Before Michael could respond, they were drawn back into the celebration, residents wanting to express gratitude, children eager to show off the new playground, community leaders discussing future collaborations. Yet throughout the evening, they remained connected by shared glances, brief touches, the invisible thread that had been strengthening since that first moment of rescue. Later, as twilight descended and the gathering began to disperse, they stood at the edge of the newly planted community garden. Tiny seedlings just beginning their journey toward growth lined neatly prepared beds. 6 months ago, I wouldn't have believed any of this was possible, Eleanor admitted, gesturing to encompass not just the garden, but the entire transformed community, and perhaps the transformation in herself as well. What changed? Michael asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. Eleanor turned to him, the corporate armor completely absent, revealing the woman who had always existed beneath the CEO title. I did, she said simply, with some help. Michael's hand found hers, their fingers intertwining naturally. We all need help sometimes, he said. Even self-sufficient construction workers and powerful CEOs. Especially them, Eleanor agreed with a smile. As the last rays of sunlight gilded the renovated riverside facade, they stood together amid new beginnings, seeds in soil communities, renewed possibilities unfolding. What had started with a simple act of rescue had evolved into something neither could have anticipated, but both now recognized as invaluable. Not a transaction or an obligation, but a choice. A foundation being laid with care, designed to support whatever they might build together in the days to come. Across the courtyard, Lily waved enthusiastically, beckoning them to join her and Gloria for the ceremonial cake cutting. As they moved toward the child, Michael's anchor. Eleanor's unexpected joy, the future stretched before them, not as separate paths, but as a shared journey. Some rescues, it seemed, worked in both directions, and some foundations, once properly laid, could support something far more enduring than towers of steel and glass. They could support a life rebuilt from the ground up, stronger for having been broken, more beautiful for having been carefully reconstructed piece by meaningful piece.